Is a pension good enough in today's world? Is that salary until you retire good enough in today's world? I don't think so. I think we have some challenges coming up, and the pension crisis is just upon us. And so I think that you have to take steps now to realize that some of these things that our parents and our grandparents talked about, having a safe, secure job, having a safe, secure pension, just aren't part of our upcoming landscape.
One of the ways our wealth is ripped off is via our pensions. So, let's say I graduate from college at 25, or school, I start working at 25. I give Wall Street my money for 40 years till I'm 65. Guess what? It doesn't have to be there. They can take it.
In the book, Who Stole My Pension?, I talk about what I term gross malpractice generally practiced. And that is that most pension funds are grossly mismanaged. And they lie about their performance, and they lie about the fees they pay. And so it's very difficult for investors to be comfortable that the retirement promises that have been made to them will in fact be kept.
The idea of retirement is a new idea. 1800s, 1700s, 1600s, you died on the plow. Cradle to grave, you worked. You're in the coal mine working until you die, or you're in the sick bed and your kid takes care of you if you're lucky. In the late 1800s, there was a company called American Express, and there were no credit cards then. They were a courier like Federal Express. They had a rail system, and they'd take parcels around. And they offered the first pension. And they said, look, work till you're a certain age and you'll be vested. And then this is key. And then when you retire, we'll give you a pension. Now, you'll never be rich. You'll never have abundance, but you'll have survival. And that's an exchange that many people will take. Fast forward to the 50s and 60s. There was a company called the Studebaker Company, and they sold cars, and they failed to innovate. They had horrible financial problems, and they would go to the unions and say, look, we can't pay your pensions, we've got to renegotiate. And the union said, no, we're not going to renegotiate. And they go, we're going out of business, which they did. And now you had this problem of all these people that worked all those years expecting this promised income to come in, not there. If you look at the business level, you have companies like Hostess and GM and Delta, United. They go bankrupt because they could not pay people that didn't work.
Well, pension funds are under attack in America today and have been for decades now because they're costly. You should assume, if you're in a pension, that people are working on cutting your benefits. You can be certain that there are human resource and finance consultants meeting with your former employer, working on how to screw you out of your pension benefit. Because any legal means they can to increase their bottom line, they're going to exercise.
There, at every level, business, municipal, state, and federal, the idea of providing for people that no longer contribute is very difficult to do. And you're like the Studebaker Company, or you're Detroit, or San Bernardino as a municipality, and you have firemen and policemen. You have people that you owe money to that you cannot pay. It is so nice to just declare Chapter 11 and say, well, we're bankrupt now. Well, they didn't go out of business, didn't they? The Chapter 11, and in the municipality level, it's called a Chapter 9. Those bankruptcies sever those promises to those working people. They sever them. Detroit took it clear to the Supreme Court. They say, you can't mess with these pensions. And the Supreme Court said, actually, the law says you can. It's called bankruptcy. And yet, there still is a Detroit Police and Fire. There still is a United Airlines and a Delta Airlines and a GM. Bankruptcy severs the promises of pensions.
When corporations are under financial distress, they can go to the federal government, the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, and seek to dump their pension obligations onto the federal government, which is ultimately taxpayers. And thousands of American corporations have done that in connection with their bankruptcies and emerge leaner, meaner, and more financially competitive.
Easy not to think about this when you're young or middle-aged, but what about your parents, your grandparents? Have their pensions worked out? Would you be comfortable with their situation? Will that even be an option for you?
When pensions are taken over by the PBGC, the pension benefits don't disappear, but they're typically reduced significantly, say 50% or more in certain cases for high-income workers such as airline pilots.
So more and more we're going to hear about all these pensions going bankrupt. And it's due to the Fed and the government and Wall Street as all part of GRUNCH, Gross Universal Cash Heist.
Pensions are based on company money invested in a Wall Street fund. It's the interest earned from those funds that pays retired workers what they were promised. So for 20 or 30 years, Wall Street has use of that money, charging fees to do so. But when the day comes to start receiving your monthly pension check, well, that all depends on that fund's performance, how it was managed, and a lot of that hinges on decisions made by the Fed.
It's the Fed that is causing the pensions to go bust. And they keep dropping those interest rates. A pension runs on approximately 7.5% return. If they're getting a 7.5% return, the thing works. Money coming in, money going out, you pay the pension. But it's basically a Ponzi scheme. You need the new money coming in to pay the old money going out. But when the new money coming in is less valuable, 2%, but your bill is 7.5%, you're going broke.
Pensions, or defined benefit plans, don't seem to have a bright future. Lots of companies no longer offer them. Their replacement has been the 401k, or defined contribution plan. Now it's on you to determine how much and what to invest in your retirement.
If there is a gross universal cash heist, the 401k would be a prime example of that type of a heist. One of the people I read a lot is the late John Bogle, and the words he uses are robbery and tyranny. He didn't say people were bamboozled or hoodwinked or lied to or tricked. He says this is robbery.
Well, the great 401k experiment, it's safe to say, has been a dismal failure. They were not intended to be a comprehensive retirement plan at all. 401ks were originally created to be sort of bonus plans or profit-sharing plans for generally senior executives or senior employees of companies. And workers were told that 401ks would provide the same level of retirement security as a pension. That's what they were told since the 1970s. It's simply not true. The success of an individual's 401k depends upon their income, how much they contribute to the 401k, the investment decisions they make, the costs. It is a very difficult process to master, and very few do.
Now retirement goes from being a function of income that's someone else's problem to provide for you. That's your problem. It has not worked, and when it doesn't work, Wall Street will look at you and say, well, why didn't you save more? Why didn't you give us more of your money?
So the premise that workers who are working 40 hours a week have time to study the financial markets and become skilled in financial decision making is just fundamentally wrong. Most workers have saved very little in their 401k plans. Your average 65-year-old has, by my estimate, maybe $75,000 in retirement savings. With $75,000, you're looking at earnings to supplement your retirement at only a few $100s a month. So the question is, who can retire on, let's say, $500 a month?
Once you're retired, the company says, not our problem anymore. So now I have this nest egg that is really an hourglass, and the fear people have is that they'll outlive their money. Isn't that sad? That most people their biggest fear in retirement is that they'll live too long.
Wrongdoing in the money management industry is pervasive, because if you are given somebody else's money to handle for decades perhaps, you will at some point, chances are, start thinking about ways of making that money benefit you personally. So it's not the case that there are a few bad apples on Wall Street. It's an industry that is full of bad apples. It's an industry where people are motivated by greed. And if they aren't, their employers are, and they're told to maximize the bottom line.
Hey, it's Dr. Pedram Shojai, the host of the Great Heist film. We are doing a free screening of this film. You just saw a clip. You could see the entire film for free. Click right here and you'll get access.